What's up my friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna make the Palmetto, which is a classic cocktail you probably already done before without even knowing it. Because Palmetto is actually kind of just a fancy word to say Rum Manhattan. But there's more to it and we're gonna talk about this later when we're gonna make the cocktail. And then we're gonna make a super fun riff on the classic because this drink is a great template to play with. It's simple, it has a lot to offer, a lot of possibilities for flavor pairing. So today we're gonna do a rum blend, an infused vermouth. We're gonna add to that a few drops of magic sauce. You will see your taste buds are going to be delighted. So if you guys are ready, let's make together the Palmetto. Let's go. Okay, so the Palmetto, aka the Rum Manhattan, was first published in 1930 in the Savoy cocktail book by Harry Craddock. And while the recipe back then was calling for equal parts of rum and sweet vermouth and a couple of dashes of orange bitters, the recipe evolved over time like a lot of classic following this kind of template. And now chances are if you order a Palmetto, you're gonna get 2 parts of rum for 1 part of sweet vermouth with a couple of dashes of bitters. And if you're like me, like I said in the intro, you probably made this cocktail several times before even knowing it had a name other than just the Rum Manhattan. For me, for example, when I first started bartending, I had this regular, I was drinking just that. Rum Manhattans served up in a rocks glass. That was his thing and I made a lot of these. And I remember vividly the first time I read the Savoy cocktail book, I came across the Palmetto and was like, oh, that's cool. It has a name. It's an old classic from the 1930s. I have to tell this to my guest the next time I see him. I'm gonna look like I know what I'm talking about and that's gonna be cool. So the next time I saw him, I was like, yo, do you know your Rum Manhattan has a name? It's an old classic from the 1930s. He was like, no, but that's cool. What's the name of the cocktail? And I froze. The only thing I could think of was Palermo, which I knew was not the right name, but since then, I'm cursed. Most of the time when I want to refer to the Palmetto, I say Palermo, with no reasons. So forgive me if during this video I say Palermo rather than Palmetto. I hope you will still understand I'm referring to the Rum Manhattan. But now, all that being said, the Palmetto, while being a very simple cocktail to make, it still has a catch. The rum that was used to make this cocktail back to when it was created is no longer available. The recipe calls for St. Croix rum, which is also known as Santa Cruz rum, and according to David Wondrich, the cocktail historian, this style of rum doesn't exist anymore because in the 19th century, the rums that were made on the St. Croix island were using a very specific technique and alembic that was resulting in a very specific taste that doesn't exist anymore. So you have to be a little bit creative when you want to choose a good rum for this cocktail, and for me, that just screams a good bottle of Barbados rum. But obviously, you can make your own test and choose your favorite rum for this cocktail. Nobody's gonna judge you, or at least I won't. Now, let's make the cocktail. We're gonna start with 2 ounces or 60 mils of your chosen rum, 1 ounce or 30 mils of sweet vermouth, and 2 dashes of orange bitters. We're gonna fill our mixing glass with ice and stir it for about 60 revolutions or 30 seconds. Then we're gonna strain this in a chilled cocktail coupe. The recipe calls for a zest of orange. It's gonna express over the cocktail. And there you have it, my friends, the Palmetto. Cheers. It's really tasty, really Manhattan-like, but more summery. And depending on the rum that you choose, you're gonna get something very different. So there's as many Palmetto as there are rums out there. So it is a great cocktail to play with if you wanna experiment with different styles of rums. That being said, it's also a little bit unidirectional. It's very straightforward. There's not a lot to say about it, but there's a lot we can do with this to make it even better, to make it more complex and more fun. And that's what we're gonna do with the second version of it. So let's do it. According to David Wondrich, once again, you can try to replicate the St. Croix rum that was made back in the 19th century by mixing aged Cuban, Jamaican, and agricole rum in a specific ratio. In my bottle here, I did something similar, but instead of using Cuban rum, I used Barbados rum for my personal preferences, and I also played a little bit with the ratios. Also, the rums that I'm using today are available on Curiada.com, so that's gonna make it very easy for you if you wanna do the exact same thing as I did. So that's pretty simple. All I did is 8 ounces of the Real McCoy 5 years with 2 ounces of Smith & Cross Jamaican rum and 2 ounces of Clément VSOP Agricole rum. Now for the vermouth, I made something a little bit different. We're gonna start by mixing Bonal and sweet vermouth. Bonal is a quinine and gentian fortified wine aperitif, and it has a very unique flavor profile that's gonna work really nicely and pair perfectly with the other ingredient we're gonna mix this with. Now for the sweet vermouth, I'm using Cinzano 1757. This was a new vermouth for me, and the reason why I got this bottle is simply because I bought some Cookie di Torino online and the bottle never showed up. That's the vermouth I usually use in this cocktail, so I needed a solution, and when I saw this at the supermarket, I was intrigued. I'm usually not a huge fan of Cinzano, but this one seemed a little bit different. It says that it's kind of a replica of the original recipe of the Cinzano. It's a vermouth di Torino, so I gave it a shot and I was really surprised, happily surprised. It is a little bit similar to the Cookie di Torino while being different. It's a little bit more bitter, which I appreciate, a little less chocolatey, which is not a big deal because the Bonal is, so overall it works really well together. So if you have access to this vermouth, it is a really good one for its price, but if you have Cookie di Torino at home, use that instead. It's gonna make for an even more delicious cocktail. Now, if you're asking me if there's a substitute you can use instead of the Bonal, I would suggest beer. It's gonna be different, of course, but still it's gonna work really nicely in the cocktail. Then we're gonna add a little bit of maple syrup in the mix for more body, and we're gonna flash infuse all that with banana peels. For me, banana and rums, especially funkier rums, is just a match made in heaven. I don't know, it kind of blends together to create a new flavor that's so smooth. Even the people who didn't acquire the taste of the funky Jamaican rum will love this pairing, I'm sure. So let's do the vermouth infusion. What you're gonna need is 3 1/4 ounces of Cinzano 1757 or Cookie di Torino and 3 ounces of Bonal. Then you're gonna pour that in your cream whipper along with 3/4 ounce of dark maple syrup. Then you're gonna add 90 grams of banana peels, inject your NO2 and shake it for about 30 seconds. Then you're gonna release your gas and fine strain it through a nut milk bag or a rinsed coffee filter. So that's it for the prep. Now we're ready to make the cocktail. So in a mixing glass, we're gonna start with 2 ounces or 60 ml of our rum blend. One ounce or 30 ml of our banana and maple syrup sweet vermouth. 5 drops of nut saline solution soy sauce. If you're using maple syrup in a cocktail and you want to add a little bit of salt, don't use salt, use soy sauce. It is incredibly good. So 5 drops of that. 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. Always double up the amount when using a small Japanese dasher bottle, and the same amount of orange bitters. Now we're gonna fill our mixing glass with ice and stir it for about 60 revolutions. I'm gonna fine strain in a chilled cocktail coupe. And for the garnish, we're gonna take a banana slice, on top of which we're gonna add a little bit of granulated sugar, and with a torch, we're gonna caramelize the sugar like you would do for a creme brulee. We're gonna place that on a pick, and then over the cocktail as the garnish. And there you have it, my friends, the banana Palermo. Cheers. Oh. That's a tasty cocktail. The rum blend makes it so much more complex. The grassiness from the agricole, the funkiness from the Jamaican rum just works so nicely with the banana infusion. It's rounded up by the maple syrup, but it's not too sweet. And the small amount of soy sauce really elevates all those flavors. but still you get something different than if you would just use regular salt as your saline solution. You get that fermented soy flavor lingering in the back palate that just works extremely well with the banana, with the rum, with the maple syrup. I think this is a wonderful cocktail and I really hope you're gonna give it a try. Let me know in the comments below if you do and if you liked it. So my friends, this is it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, to turn that bell if you want to make sure not to miss the next one. Check us out on Patreon. We have some pretty cool things there. So my friends, once again, that's it for me today. Have a great day and see you very soon. Cheers.